Welcome to UNCAGED, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. And we're definitely going to be talking about business and a leader who's shaping today and tomorrow. Please welcome John Ross. John, how are you?
What's going on, Ben? Nice to see you.
Now, John is the Vice President of Marketing for PosiGen. And PosiGen is a very interesting company. It's the nation's leading residential solar energy efficiency and energy education provider for low to moderate income families. PosiGen has more than 19,000 residential customers, over 460 direct employees, and supports more than 150 employees through its contractors in Louisiana, Mississippi, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, and Florida. And so we'll get more into all the amazing stuff that PosiGen is working on. But before we get there, John, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career.
Hey, thanks. So my background, I consider myself an accidental marketer. I started in interactive media, writing content for search engines. That led through a whole fast forward through music and education related startups in industries, and learning a lot of lessons there from how to build a business and build a business model. I found my time helping build a digital agency practice within a shopper marketing group that was sold to Epsilon called Catapult Marketing. Also really interesting. And then I just sort of fell in love with big brands and how big brands make decisions. And so the almost 10 years at PepsiCo, I had three unique perspectives. I worked in digital innovation on the US media team. I got to serve as chief of staff for two CMOs. And then manage global partnerships, including big hospitality brands and the turnaround at Papa John's. And so I think that's what helped me develop my strategies and skill sets to take on this startup opportunity with PosiGen Solar.
I love it. And I think that it sounds to me that you were gravitating to what I call kind of entrepreneurial roles at a big company like Pepsi. So it completely makes sense that you're ready to kind of tackle something like PosiGen. Tell me more about what you guys are up to there.
So we offer residential leases of solar assets, and we do energy efficiency audits of homeowners, of residential homeowners. And these are typically folks that have not been able to afford to purchase solar panels for their home, and they'll see incredible savings that will save them a great amount of money. We can lease those to them in a way that doesn't require a credit check. There's no FICO score involved. And so we're really focused on underserved communities in different areas around the country.
That's great. And I always, I've thought about obviously how to jumpstart the use of more sustainable energy solutions. And clearly what PosiGen's working on is one of the key issues, right? How do we get this to a broader demographic, broader clientele, right? And make them structured in a way that they can embrace it. What are some of the things that you guys are having success with really to achieve that?
I think we have leading community partners in every market, every state that we're in, whether they're green banks, whether they're groups like Solarize Philly and Philadelphia. I think having those types of partners is what allows you to play a role in the community and builds trust with those customers who are interested in this in these types of opportunities. And so I think it's really how you go to market has as much to do with where you choose to operate as it is like what the proposition is of what you're selling. And that's the first part of the strategic plan.
Now, John, I mean, you come from a world where you've done everything in big business, and you've also you're working in more startup or entrepreneurial settings. What do you think you've drawn from your big corporate world into this new world and vice versa?
I think a lot of the PepsiCo training and growth was around innovation and how much, how could you benefit from innovation and products? And so the approach there is market research. And so in the first 60 days that I was at PosiGen, I visited each of our markets. I met with each of the marketing team members there. I went on ride-alongs to install roofing on people's houses. I went and sat at the dining room table and selling solar to new customers, as well as just spending time just learning what was available. And so once you get immersed in those types of customer insights, you can start to get an idea for the business. I've only been here for about 5 months. But I feel really good about the training and immersion that they've provided for me to help lead the team.
Well, I mean, we hear so much about the push towards sustainable energy and things like solar and other forms of energy. Where do you think we are in terms of progress? Are we making progress? What do you think we're going to see in the near future?
Well, I wouldn't look beyond the irony of this company being founded and headquartered in New Orleans, Louisiana. And as a Tulane professor said yesterday in the interview, the fact that is we're an energy state, not an oil state. And so the shift towards renewable energy is a part of all of the agendas from everybody that's owning the grid and distributing electricity through the traditional companies that have provided energy in the US. But the customer demand for that, the customer who wants to be in charge of saving money for themselves and is willing to put a mini power plant on their house to do it, that outweighs the pace of growth that would come from the traditional category.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see how the space seems to be getting more momentum, and I definitely am excited about the near future for it. But I mean, we've been living through a moment, and I know that you've joined PosiGen in April of this year. I'd just be curious to see kind of how you think that the pandemic impacted the business. Certainly what we find is sometimes it impacted companies negatively, but others certainly offered opportunities to them. Just be curious to see how this moment that we lived through impacted PosiGen.
Well, I mean, I think we've had double-digit growth over the last 2 years. A lot of people were forced to stay at home. And so just like the home repair or landscaping or gardening industry, I think you saw those same trends with a Home Depot or a Lowe's as people were looking for solutions and decisions that they could make for themselves. But I think they also had a lot of time to think about what can they do to better their lives, and saving a lot of money allows them to retain homes and pass them on to future generations. And it also allows them just to think more and have more space about the decisions that they can make.
I love it. I think right now I'm living in a big condominium, and so I don't feel like I have any control over my use of solar. Even when I lobby the building about it, they look at me perplexed. Perhaps you guys can build a solution for me.
If you can do that, then you can come and help me with home recycling programs here in New Orleans.
Excellent, excellent. Well, John, I mean, you're starting out in the company. You guys are pushing into the back half of this year. And, it's been an interesting year. 2022 certainly hasn't been the year that I predicted at all. Some ways for better, some ways quite surprising to see how the inflation and issues like that have impacted things. When you're looking at the back half of this year and 2023, what's on the horizon for you?
I think the climate bill that was just passed, I mean, they call it the Inflation Reduction Act, but the climate bill for us is going to allow more access and more incentives for people to explore residential solar and energy efficiency. And so trying to scale a brand to be prepared for that level of demand is one of the things that I think about when I wake up first in the morning. I think
Yeah.
it's really important that this brand is prepared to scale. And my background in marketing and my background in planning from a strategic standpoint is one of the reasons why I accepted, this challenge and what they expect of me and my team to deliver.
Yeah, I love that. It's an interesting one. I spent a ton of time overseas, and a couple years ago, Spain was really crushing it in terms of their rollout of solar power. And then the government changed their policies, and suddenly it all seemed to kind of grind to a halt. And it's a tricky thing trying to figure out how that scaling process will work. I'd be curious to get your take on this. Everyone seems to want to do the right thing, but getting them to actually do that is a whole nother challenge, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I get excited about in the discussions that we have outside of marketing is not just how many customers want this, but how we think about the company from a hiring perspective, because we're creating a lot of opportunity in those markets in which we operate. I started April 18th, and we've hired more than 200 people since then. So
Wow.
it's an exciting time at the company. Real challenges in terms of how we communicate with each other and how we gather our business intelligence. But for the most part, I think we're seeing the good problems to have for a company that's growing this quickly.
John, if somebody wanted to learn more about what you and the team are working on at PosiGen, where should they find you?
You can find us through PosiGen.com or anywhere that you would participate in social media. I'm glad you asked that question, because simplifying solar is the hardest thing I've learned. From this. If you ask people what is solar, they might think it's commercial solar farms. They might think that it's something that they've seen trending on YouTube. But what it really is, it's an opportunity to capture and create energy for yourself and save money doing it. And so that's going to be the hardest part of my job as to how I can tell that story about simplifying solar. And so if you pay attention to PosiGen, you'll see some of that coming out in the next few months, like from a video perspective that will really help you understand what the opportunity is for you, what it means for your community, and what it means for the planet.
That's great. Well, I'm hoping that tons of people reach out. I love what you guys are doing, and I love the story. We've been speaking with John Ross. He is the Vice President of Marketing at PosiGen. PosiGen's a really interesting company. It's growing extremely quickly. They're the nation's leading residential solar energy efficiency and energy education provider for low to moderate income families. This is a key demographic that we certainly want to embrace. The powers of renewable energy, and certainly figuring out a way to do that effectively is what PosiGen is trying to do. John, thank you so much for being on UNCAGED today, and we look forward to having you back.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Cheers.